Imagine you're watching like the ultimate blockbuster action movie. You've got daring escapes, impossible odds, a tyrannical empire,
Oh, absolutely.
and the heroes are literally walking through a parted sea to freedom. We are talking about the Book of Exodus, and it is just epic.
It really is. The drama is incredible.
Right, and it ends with this massive, triumphant swell of cinematic music. But then the sequel drops.
Yeah. And the tone changes completely.
It really does. Instead of more explosions and action, the sequel opens with a manual. A really long, incredibly detailed manual about, how to wash your hands, what kind of animals you can eat, and exactly how to butcher a goat.
It is undeniably a massive tonal shift. I mean,
Yeah.
for so many people, this is the exact moment their goal to read through the entire Bible just hits a brick wall.
It is the ultimate screeching halt. We are, of course, talking about the Book of Leviticus, so welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we are looking at a fantastic, comprehensive set of source documents that really breaks down the structure, the history, and the rich theology of this book.
And our mission today is essentially to rescue Leviticus from its reputation.
Exactly. Because let's be honest, we all tend to think it's just this cold, complicated book of dusty religious regulations.
Right, because the problem is that we often try to read it as a standalone legal document. But if we look closely at the source material, it's doing something entirely different.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's answering the most crucial now what question in history. Like, Exodus is the explosive rescue, but Leviticus is the deeply vital everyday reality of living with the rescuer.
That makes a lot of sense. I was looking at the notes on the geography and the historical timeline here, and it really sets the stage for that. It's roughly the 15th century BC. The Israelites have traveled out of Egypt, they crossed the Red Sea, and they are now camped out in the stark, unforgiving wilderness at Mount Sinai.
Yeah, and we have to remember, this isn't some quaint little weekend camping trip.
Right, it's a huge operation.
Exactly. This is a massive, vulnerable nation of perhaps over 1 million people just living in tents in the desert.
And right in the center of their massive encampment, they've just finished building the tabernacle.
The tent of meeting.
Yeah, this elaborate designated tent. And at the very end of the previous book, Exodus, something terrifying and beautiful happens. The text tells us that God's glorious presence descends and physically fills this tabernacle.
He basically moves into the neighborhood.
He does. But here is where I have to put myself in the sandals of an everyday Israelite. I mean, I'm standing outside my family's tent. God just went through all this incredible trouble to rescue us from slavery in Egypt.
Right.
He unleashed plagues, he parted a sea, and now, suddenly, he's putting up all these intense barriers and rules.
It's a jarring shift.
It really is. It feels a little like getting invited to the most exclusive VIP party of your life, but the bouncer at the door says, "Welcome, glad you're here, but you can't touch anything, you can't look at anyone, and if you step on the rug, you die."
That is such a modern way to feel about it.
Honestly, it feels alienating.
Well, it absolutely feels that way to our modern sensibilities because, we demand unrestricted access to everything.
True.
But to understand the barriers, we have to understand the core theme of the entire book. It's explicitly stated in Leviticus 11.44, "You shall be holy, for I am holy."
We throw that word around a lot in religious contexts, right? Holy.
Wow.
But what does it actually mean for a desert nomad standing outside a tent?
Fundamentally, holy means being set apart. It means
Oh.
being completely unique, pure, and distinct from the ordinary, the common, or the corrupt.
Okay.
God isn't putting up rules because he's arbitrary or vindictive. He is inherently pure. I like to think of it like the sun.
The sun in the sky.
Exactly. The sun is brilliant, beautiful, and absolutely essential for life. But, if you fly too close to it without extreme specialized protection, you will burn up instantly.
Right.
Not because the sun is angry with you, but simply because of its very nature. The power of its purity consumes whatever is impure.
Wow. So the rules aren't a barrier to keep them away. They are a safe roadmap. Like they are the protective gear.
That is the brilliant paradigm shift of this book. These people are already rescued.
Right. They're already out of Egypt.
Yes, they didn't memorize Leviticus to earn their ticket out of slavery. The rules are the gracious provision to bring an unclean, broken people into the presence of a pure, life-giving God without them being destroyed.
That's amazing.
It's God saying, "I deeply want to live with you, but for that to happen safely, here's how we have to do it."
So if God is the sun and you want to approach without burning up, you need physical architecture to manage that interaction.
You do.
And our source material provides the literal blueprint for how they did this. The sanctuary was designed as a series of concentric rings of security clearance.
That's a great way to put it.
Because you couldn't just waltz into the center room because you felt spiritually inspired that morning, right? Every step closer required a deeper level of preparation.
The architecture perfectly mirrors the theology there. So let's walk inward through those zones.
Okay, let's do it.
The outermost zone is the courtyard. This is an open-air space where you find the large bronze altar and the bronze basin.
And what happens out there?
The overarching themes out here are sacrifice and cleansing. This is where the messy physical reality of sin and dirt is dealt with. It smells like smoke, blood, and roasting meat.
Very visceral.
Very. And you cannot bypass this courtyard of sacrifice to get to the presence of God.
Okay, so then, assuming you have the proper clearance, you step inside the actual tent structure into the holy place. I imagine the atmosphere changes instantly there.
Oh, completely. The sensory experience completely shifts. The harsh desert sun is blocked out.
So it's quiet, enclosed.
Yes. Inside, the space is illuminated by the golden lampstand, which was actually styled to look like a tree of life.
Beautiful.
And you have the table of showbread, which held 12 continuous loaves of bread. And this wasn't a snack for the priests. It was a powerful symbol representing God's constant provision for the 12 tribes of Israel.
And there's one more thing in that room, right?
Right. Right before the final curtain, you have the altar of incense.
So instead of the smell of roasting animal flesh from the courtyard, the air is thick with sweet smoke.
Exactly, representing the prayers of the people rising up to God.
Wow. And then you encounter the massive, heavy veil.
The final barrier.
Right. Behind that thick curtain is the third and final zone, the Holy of Holies. And it contains only one piece of furniture.
The Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, which was a gold-covered wooden chest holding the stone tablets of the broken 10 Commandments. And resting on top of that chest was the mercy seat.
A solid gold lid flanked by cherubim.
And that solid gold lid is where the blood of the sacrifice was sprinkled, literally and visually covering the broken law inside the box.
The symbolism there is staggering. I mean, this tiny pitch-black innermost room represents God's glorious, raw, unfiltered presence on earth.
And the personnel who operate in these zones are highly specific. Like Moses acts as the primary teacher and mediator, and his brother Aaron is instituted as the very first high priest. But even the high priest didn't have an unlimited all-access VIP pass, did he?
Not at all. Aaron could only enter that final innermost ring, the Holy of Holies, one time a single year.
Only once a year.
Just once. And only with intense preparation, specific garments, and the blood of atonement, the reverence required was just absolute.
You know, when I think about what this means for you and me listening right now, it hits hard.
How so?
Well, we aren't setting up tents or navigating bronze altars today, but there is a timeless principle here about how we view worship.
Oh, absolutely.
True worship isn't just showing up with good intentions like, hey, God, I'm here, let's hang out. It's about approaching the creator of the universe in the way he desires.
It really challenges our incredibly modern, casual approach to the divine. We want God to be like a cosmic buddy.
Right.
But Leviticus reminds us that God is God and we are not. Coming into his presence is a profound, breathtaking privilege that requires us to engage on his terms, rooted in his absolute holiness.
Okay, so if the architecture is designed as a series of strict security checkpoints to keep unclean people from burning up in God's presence, how did anyone ever get past that very first courtyard?
Well, that brings us to the blood.
Right. Chapters 1 through 7 of Leviticus are entirely dedicated to the sacrificial system. The altars, the smoke, the offerings.
And this is where most modern readers get completely bogged down and give up.
Yeah, it feels repetitive and honestly pretty bloody.
It does. But our source material outlines 5 distinct types of offerings. And if we look closely, they aren't just a random list. They address very different facets of the fractured relationship between God and humanity.
Looking at the list, it seems like these sacrifices actually fall into 2 main buckets.
Okay.
Like some of them read like voluntary gifts to say thank you or I love you, while the others are mandatory penalties for messing up.
That is an excellent way to categorize them. Let's look at the voluntary bucket first. You have the burnt offering. This is fundamentally about complete dedication to God. The worshiper brings an unblemished animal, places their hand on its head to identify with it, and then the entire animal is consumed by fire on the altar.
Wait, hold on. The entire animal is burned up.
The whole thing.
I have to interrupt here because that seems insane to me. They are in a barren desert, food is scarce. A healthy livestock animal is massive wealth and vital sustenance.
It is.
They are literally burning a massive source of food to ash. That feels incredibly wasteful for a nomadic people.
Well, it feels wasteful if survival is your ultimate goal. But that is exactly why the burnt offering is so profound.
How do you mean?
It symbolizes giving one's absolute whole self to the Lord, holding absolutely nothing back. By burning the entire animal, the worshiper is saying, I trust you to provide for my tomorrow so completely that I can surrender this vital resource today.
Wow, that completely changes the perspective. It's an act of radical trust.
Exactly.
Then you have the grain offering, which was a bloodless sacrifice, dedicating the literal fruits of your daily labor to God. And the third voluntary one is the peace offering,
Also known as the fellowship offering. This is a beautiful contrast to the burnt offering.
because they don't burn the whole thing.
Right. With the peace offering, part of the animal was burned for God, part was given to provide for the priest, but the majority of the meat was actually taken back and eaten by the worshiper and their family in the presence of God.
So it's essentially a holy barbecue.
A holy barbecue. I love that.
It's a shared, sacred meal representing restored fellowship, God, the priest, and the people all partaking together.
Now we shift to the second bucket. The mandatory penalties for when things go wrong.
The sin and guilt offering.
Yes. First is the sin offering. This was specifically for forgiveness and cleansing when someone unintentionally broke one of God's commands. It dealt with the internal spiritual pollution of sin.
And then there's the guilt offering. And the mechanics of this one are just fascinating to me.
They really are.
Because it wasn't just about saying sorry to God. It was utilized when your sin caused actual physical or financial damage.
Exactly. Let's say you accidentally damaged your neighbor's property or stole something. You didn't just go to the tabernacle, sacrifice a ram, and consider yourselves spiritually pardoned.
Right.
The guilt offering required you to pay back the full value of what you took or damaged, plus 20% extra.
120% restitution rate.
Yes.
So God is essentially saying that true holiness requires making things physically and economically right with your fellow humans, not just asking for invisible forgiveness from the sky.
The complexity of these 5 offerings reveals something deep about the true nature of sin. Sin isn't just a simple, oops.
It's destructive.
It fractures reality. It damages our vertical relationship with God, and it shatters our horizontal relationships with each other. A simple my bad apology doesn't fix a complex multi-directional fracture.
No, it requires restoration of fellowship, which is the peace offering. It requires literal, painful compensation for wrongs, which is the guilt offering.
And this is the crucial theological dot we have to connect. The blood of those goats and bulls in the dusty courtyard. It was never meant to be the final solution.
It wasn't.
No. Every single one of these sacrifices ultimately points forward. They are neon signs pointing to the salvation accomplished centuries later by Jesus Christ.
That makes so much sense. So when an Israelite saw an innocent animal bleed out in their place, they understood the severe, deadly cost of their sin.
Yes.
And they saw the immense, unearned grace of God to provide a substitute so they wouldn't have to die.
In the New Testament, Christ is presented as the ultimate fulfillment of all these offerings. He is the final, perfect sacrifice that handles the pollution, pays the restitution, and permanently restores the fellowship.
Okay, so the courtyard sacrifices handle the major breaks in the relationship. They deal with the crisis moments.
Right.
But what about a random Tuesday afternoon? How are the Israelites supposed to live the rest of the time?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the entire second half of Leviticus, chapters 11 through 27, it shifts completely away from the bronze altar and moves straight into everyday life.
The second half provides the rhythm for a holy life, and it organizes this into 3 main areas. You have the purity laws, the Day of Atonement, and the calendar of festivals.
Let's start with those purity laws in chapters 11 through 15. This is the section about what you can and can't eat, what to do if you have a skin disease, or, and this one is wild, what happens if you find mold growing on the wall of your house.
Yeah, the house mildew.
Right. Why on earth are bodily fluids or house mildew treated with the same heavy spiritual weight as a moral sin?
That is a very common confusion. We have to separate the concepts of sin and uncleanness.
Okay, unpack that.
Being unclean didn't necessarily mean you had committed a moral sin. Often it just meant you had come into contact with the realities of mortality and the curse of a broken world. Things like disease, bodily discharges, childbirth, or touching a dead body.
So it's not that the dirt on your hands or a skin rash is evil.
Think of it like a surgeon preparing to enter a sterile operating theater. If a surgeon touches a doorknob, they haven't committed a crime.
Right, they aren't going to jail.
Exactly. They haven't done something morally evil. But they become contaminated. They cannot enter that sterile, life-saving environment without going through a rigorous physical washing process.
Yes.
The purity laws were God's way of teaching Israel that the author of life is completely separated from death and decay. To enter his presence required a period of separation and cleansing.
It was a physical, daily teaching tool for spiritual truth.
Absolutely.
Which brings us to the anchor of the entire book, sitting right in the middle in chapter 16, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur.
This was the monumental day of national grace. The one day a year the high priest entered the Holy of Holies. And the mechanism of how this worked is incredibly vivid.
First off, the high priest doesn't wear his elaborate, glorious, jewel-covered robes. He strips down to simple, plain linen garments. And he takes 2 goats.
2 goats to represent one complete act of salvation. The first goat is sacrificed at the altar. Its blood is taken behind the heavy veil, right into the pitch-black presence of God, and sprinkled on the mercy seat to satisfy the justice of God's broken law.
But the second goat is kept alive.
Yes.
The high priest walks out to the courtyard, lays both his hands on the head of the living goat, and audibly confesses all the wickedness, rebellion, and sins of the entire nation of Israel.
He is symbolically transferring the guilt of the people onto the animal. And then that goat, the scapegoat, is led away out of the camp, far into the desolate wilderness, never to return.
The visual of that for an everyday Israelite must have been overwhelming.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Just watching your sins literally walk away into the desert, removed from the camp entirely.
Yeah.
Justice is satisfied by the first goat, and guilt is removed by the second.
It is the ultimate reset button for the community's relationship with God. And to ensure they never took this grace for granted, chapters 17 through 27 lay out a strict calendar of holy living and festivals.
I think about how much we rely on our phones today. You know, we use calendar apps that buzz to remind us of a meeting, or habit trackers that notify us to drink water or take a breath.
Right, constant notifications.
Well, exactly. Leviticus basically instituted an ancient national calendar app, but instead of a digital notification, it was a constant physical reminder interwoven into the fabric of time itself.
They had the weekly Sabbath, they had the Passover in the spring, they had the Feast of Booths in the fall, where they literally moved out of their houses and lived in temporary tents for a week.
Just to remember how God provided for them in the wilderness.
Yes. They couldn't go a week, let alone a harvest season, without their entire schedule being interrupted by a tangible reminder of who God was and what he had done.
Wow.
It ensured that God wasn't just a 2-hour Sunday activity. He commanded their time, their agriculture, and their economy.
And this raises the ultimate question for you, listening right now. How does a book written to desert nomads apply to your life today?
The most important question.
Because we don't sacrifice goats or follow ancient dietary laws. But the call from Leviticus 11.44 to be holy, to be set apart, has not changed.
It hasn't. It takes this lofty theological concept of holiness and makes it ruthlessly practical. It asks us to look at our actual lives.
Down to the details.
It challenges us to look at our families, our workplaces, and our communities. Are you interacting with the people around you with justice, mercy, and love?
Yeah.
Are you willing to make 120% restitution when you hurt someone? And if someone were to audit your calendar or your bank statement today, would they conclude that God is actually at the center of your existence?
That is deeply convicting. Holiness isn't just closing your eyes and singing a worship song. It's how you treat your annoying neighbor on a Wednesday afternoon.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a massive amount of ground today, and I really hope you can see that Leviticus is absolutely not a dusty manual of forgotten rules to just skip over.
It is the foundation for understanding the rest of the Bible.
It is this breathtaking story of a perfect, holy God going to extraordinary lengths to dwell with a broken, flawed people without destroying them.
It really is.
Every single bronze altar, every washing ritual, every priest, and every scapegoat was a signpost. They were all pointing toward the ultimate permanent grace that we now find in Christ. The sequel to the action movie didn't just add boring rules, it beautifully explained how the heroes could actually survive and thrive in the presence of their rescuer.
That's a perfect way to summarize it. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
Our modern world has completely abandoned ancient sacrificial systems. We don't bring grain or rams to an altar anymore. We look at Leviticus and think it's primitive.
We do.
Yet look around. So many of us still walk around utterly exhausted. We are constantly trying to atone for our own mistakes and shortcomings.
We just use different methods.
We use perfectionism. We use overworking. We use endless people-pleasing. We are constantly sacrificing our own peace, our health, and our families, trying to prove our worth on the altar of modern success.
Oh, wow.
So what if that modern, exhausting hustle to prove that we are enough is really just the human heart crying out for the exact same permanent, unconditional grace that the book of Leviticus was pointing toward all along?
We are still desperately looking for the altar to clear our conscience.
We're just using the wrong sacrifices.
Think about that the next time you feel the need to relentlessly prove yourself or earn your right to exist. That grace is already there. The ultimate sacrifice has already been made. Stop sacrificing your peace. You just have to draw near.